What is happening in one of America's most isolated territories, where billions of dollars are being poured into an island in the middle of the ocean? In the Western Pacific, luxury resorts stand beside enormous military runways. Welcome to Guam. The island is protected by some of the world's most advanced defense systems, yet that same protection could make it one of the first targets if a major conflict erupts in the region. Deep within the tropical forests, trees still cover the land, but one familiar sound has almost completely disappeared. And this silence was not created by nature. So how do people live between this isolated paradise and military fortress? From above, roads and neighborhoods quickly shrink away until Guam becomes little more than a narrow green strip in the middle of the ocean. The island is less than 31 miles long, yet more than 3,700 miles of open water separate it from Hawaii. Placing Guam on a map reveals another paradox. This American territory lies closer to Manila, Tokyo, and Taipei than to the continental United States. While most of America is still living through the previous day, dawn has already arrived in Guam. That is why the island is known as where America's day begins. The first light of day also reveals something puzzling. Northern Guam has almost no major rivers, so where does all the tropical rainwater go? From the surface, there is no obvious answer. It only becomes clear beneath the limestone plateau. Rainwater passes through countless cracks and cavities before collecting underground in a freshwater lens. Most of Guam's residents depend on this invisible water supply. Travel south, and the pattern changes abruptly. Limestone gives way to less permeable volcanic ground. Instead of disappearing underground, water forms streams, cuts through valleys, and eventually reaches the sea. Roads are forced to curve around mountain slopes, while small communities are drawn closer to the coast. Geology, it turns out, does more than divide the landscape. It determines where water collects, where roads can be built, and where people can establish their communities. On an island less than 31 miles long, the journey from north to south passes through two distinctly different landscapes. Yet Guam's oldest traces are not found in limestone or volcanic soil. They remain hidden beneath the trees of an ancient village. Beneath the forest canopy of the ancient village of Pogat, a line of massive stones suddenly emerges among the trees. Each column consists of an upright pillar called a haligi and a bowl-shaped capstone called a tosa. Arranged in two parallel rows, they once supported an entire wooden house above the ground. These structures are known as latte. Found only in the Mariana Islands, they have become the most recognizable symbol of the CHamoru people. The ancestors of the CHamoru arrived in the islands more than 3,500 years ago, while latte stones appeared only about 1,000 years ago. Before raising their homes on stone pillars, they had already spent thousands of years learning how to live with the island. Long before the name Guam appeared on European maps, this land was known as Guohan. The name comes from the word guaha, meaning to have or to possess abundance. Yet the most important source of life was not buried deep beneath the land, it moved beyond the horizon. From the shore, proas once raced across the ocean with an asymmetrical main hull and a small outrigger attached to one side. When changing direction, sailors did not need to turn the entire canoe around. Instead, they moved the sail from one end to the other, turning the bow into the stern before continuing their journey. Their speed led early Europeans to call them flying boats. One account even claimed that a proa completed the voyage from Guam to Manila in about 4 days. But the people guiding these vessels were even more remarkable. Wind direction, wave patterns, ocean currents, and the movement of the stars all became navigational signs. The ocean was not an empty space separating the islands, it was a highway. When the canoe returned to shore, another system of balance continued to keep the community strong. Ancient CHamoru society was organized around matrilineal clans. Land, property, and social status could be passed down through the female line. Communities had both male and female leaders, and women were consulted on important decisions. A house supported by latte stones was therefore more than a shelter. It formed the center of a family network extending across generations. At the heart of CHamoru social unity is Inafa Maulek, a value centered on harmony, cooperation, and mutual responsibility. Help does not end after a single exchange. It continues moving through the community until it reaches another family in need of support. Proas are no longer the main form of transportation, and homes are no longer built on latte stones, but this principle of balance remains. Stone pillars keep the house above the ground. The outrigger keeps the canoe from capsizing. The community keeps each family from being left behind. On an island frequently struck by tropical storms, this unity can determine how people endure days without electricity or water, when entire communities may become isolated. Morning around Tumon Bay begins among high-rise hotels, duty-free stores, and shuttle buses carrying visitors along the coast. Under the sunlight, glass buildings and blue water give the area the appearance of a modern tropical paradise. Drive only a few minutes inland, and the scenery quickly changes. Single-story homes sit beneath the trees, chickens wander through the yards, and cars are parked near the front doors. This is the familiar daily environment of most Guam residents. Each day often begins behind the wheel, because the bus network remains limited and the island has no railroad. Marine Corps Drive serves as the route to work, the road to school, and the path families take to reach the supermarket. Within this ordinary setting, many homes carry features that may seem unusually heavy. Thick concrete walls, low roofs, and metal storm shutters remain ready beside the windows. Most of the time, they attract little attention. A single typhoon warning is enough to change everything. Cars begin lining up outside gas stations. Outdoor furniture is brought inside, while food and drinking water disappear from store shelves faster than usual. Metal shutters are pulled closed, turning windows into solid barriers. Generators roar back to life after sitting silent for months. By the time the first winds strike the trees, entire neighborhoods have nearly sealed themselves shut. Only then do the concrete walls reveal their true purpose. They do not represent an architectural style. They are armor shaped by generations of living in the path of Pacific typhoons. Typhoon Mawar showed that even this armor has its limits. Uprooted trees blocked roads, roofs were torn from their frames, and many neighborhoods were left in darkness. In some places, residents waited weeks for stable electricity and water service to return. In the days that followed, daily life moved into front yards and driveways. Extension cords carried power from one generator to a neighboring home. Chainsaws gradually cleared paths through fallen trees. Stored water was divided into smaller containers and delivered to families running short. During the nights after the storm, light did not return everywhere at once through the power grid. Instead, it appeared in small pockets across neighborhoods, spreading from homes with working generators to the houses around them. Life returned in the same way, one yard and one road at a time. From the shores of Tumon, Guam often appears to be a paradise where the lights never go out. Yet it is precisely when those lights disappear that the vulnerability of life on this isolated island becomes impossible to ignore. Along Humotak Bay, in southern Guam, old stone walls still overlook the sea. They recall the era when European ships first began entering the Mariana Islands. In 1521, the expedition led by Ferdinand Magellan placed Guam on Western maps. More than a century later, Spain established effective control, bringing Catholicism and a colonial order that profoundly transformed CHamoru society. Evidence of the next transfer of power lies in the waters of Opera Harbor. In 1898, the USS Charleston entered the harbor and fired toward the Spanish fort. No shots were returned. Spanish officers even rowed out from shore to apologize because they did not have enough gunpowder to perform the customary salute. Guam was so isolated that they had not yet learned Spain and the United States were at war. No major battle took place. The island passed into American control and was placed under the administration of the United States Navy. Four decades later, war truly descended from the sky. On December 8, 1941, Japanese bombs began falling on Guam. The island's small defense force quickly surrendered, beginning 31 months of occupation. At Menengan, a memorial now marks the place where thousands of CHamoru people were once confined. Before American forces returned, an estimated 10,000 to 15,000 residents were forced from their homes and made to walk to concentration camps in the island's interior. English was banned, the island was renamed, and many people were subjected to forced labor while suffering from shortages of food and medicine. Asan Beach is peaceful again today. But on July 21, 1944, American forces landed along this very shoreline. For the CHamoru people, the battlefield spread across their homes, farmland, and ancestral burial grounds. Liberation Day therefore marks both survival and the price civilians paid for freedom. American forces returned in 1944. But the people of Guam had to wait until 1950 to receive United States citizenship and a civilian government. History still concealed one final witness in the forests of Talofofo. In 1972, two hunters discovered Shoichi Yokoi, a Japanese soldier who had lived underground for 28 years because he believed surrender was shameful. For the world, the war ended in 1945. In the forests of Guam, it continued until 1972. Beyond those forests, another legacy remains visible behind the military fences that stretch across the island. If you believe stories like Guam's deserve to reach more people, tap the hype button below. Your support helps us continue sharing overlooked places and rarely told histories. Marine Corps. Drive quickly fills with traffic each morning. School buses, commuters, and military convoys share the highway running across the island. From time to time, the roar of a military aircraft descends from above, loud enough to drown out the sounds of the streets. Travel a little farther, and Guam reveals another side of itself. Near the base entrances, restaurants open early, buses carry employees into secured work areas, and lines of cars slowly move through checkpoints. Many residents earn their living through construction, transportation, service industries, or jobs connected to the military. The bases are therefore not entirely separate worlds. Everything operating behind the fences directly affects the incomes and daily schedules of the surrounding communities. But the longer one observes, the clearer those boundaries become. Beyond the barbed wire lie the runways of Anderson, the naval facilities at Apra Harbor, and training grounds closed to the public. About 1/4 of Guam's land is currently controlled by the United States Department of Defense. That presence continues to expand. Camp Blaz was built to receive Marines relocating from Okinawa, while a layered missile defense network is being deployed around military facilities. Billions of dollars are being invested in barracks, runways, logistics facilities, and systems designed to detect missiles approaching from multiple directions. These projects create jobs and strengthen the island's defenses. Yet Guam's runways, deep water harbor, and weapons storage facilities also make it a valuable target if conflict breaks out. On military maps, each piece of land is defined by its strategic function. But in the memories of some CHamoru families, those same places are connected to former villages, ancestral graves, or forests that once provided medicinal plants. A fence, therefore, does more than separate two areas. Sometimes it prevents people from reaching a part of their own past. The connection to the military takes on a very different meaning inside family homes. In many living rooms, photographs of relatives in uniform are displayed with pride. Guam has a large veteran community and a deeply rooted tradition of military service. For many families, the uniform represents pride, career opportunities, and sacrifice. Then a deeper contradiction begins to emerge. People born in Guam are citizens of the United States. They can join the military, be sent into combat, and serve under the command of the American president. Yet if they continue living on their home island, they cannot vote for that president. Guam has a delegate in the House of Representatives, but that delegate cannot vote when the full House passes legislation. Decisions affecting the island's land, military presence, and future can therefore still be made thousands of miles away. Every morning, residents continue driving past those fences to work, taking their children to school, and carrying on with everyday life. Yet beneath this seemingly familiar rhythm lies a question that has never disappeared. Is Guam a place where its people control their own future, or merely a place where they are permitted to live within the strategy of a global power? The sound of drums reaches the road before the festival grounds appear beyond the trees. Step into Upau Beach Park, and the usual calm immediately disappears. Groups of dancers adjust their leaf garlands before performing. Smoke drifts from cooking stalls and crosses the walkways, carrying the aromas of grilled meat, coconut, and spices. Crowds repeatedly stop to explore the food stands. This is the Guam Micronesia Island Fair, an annual cultural gathering that has been celebrated for nearly 4 decades. The CHamoru people serve as hosts, but the stage also welcomes groups from Palau, the Marshall Islands, the Northern Mariana Islands, Chuuk, Yap, Pohnpei, and Kosrae. Each community brings dances, songs, crafts, and flavors preserved across generations. To understand Guam within this larger cultural world, begin with a plate of food. The first serving of rice has an unusually deep red color. This is hineksa ogaga, a traditional rice dish that receives its distinctive color from achiote seeds. Originally from the Americas, these seeds reached the islands during the Spanish colonial period. Beside the red rice is keligan, a dish made with meat or seafood combined with lemon juice, grated coconut, and chili peppers. It is often eaten with tortillas and accompanied by finadene, a dipping sauce whose balance of salty, sour, and spicy flavors varies from one family to another. Among these local flavors, grilled spam appears as a reminder of the war and the years that followed. This canned meat arrived from abroad, but the people of Guam adapted it to their own tastes. Over time, it became a familiar food in many local kitchens. The drums draw the crowd back toward the stage. Behind a row of dancers, a child carefully repeats each movement made by the adults. The child may not yet understand every word of the song, but culture is already being passed down in that moment. Communities scattered across Micronesia bring their dances, languages, and memories to Guam. During the festival, the island no longer feels like a distant edge of America. It becomes the center of an entire cultural region. The festival drums gradually fade into the distance. Inside a local supermarket, another rhythm continues at a steady pace. The beep of a barcode scanner. A carton of eggs, a jug of milk, and a bag of vegetables pass across the checkout counter one by one. Many items cost considerably more than they typically would in the continental United States. The reason lies not only in the product itself, but also in the long journey required to bring it to Guam. The island is estimated to import about 90% of the food it consumes. Before appearing beneath supermarket lights, many products have traveled inside refrigerated containers, crossed thousands of miles of ocean, and been unloaded at Apra Harbor. Every grocery bill therefore pays for more than food. It also carries the cost of distance. But not everything in the shopping cart begins its journey aboard a ship. Behind a home in southern Guam, banana plants grow beside the fence, while a breadfruit tree shades nearly the entire yard. After each harvest, the fruit goes directly into the kitchen, is shared with relatives, or is taken to the local market. farming is not as easy as the island's red soil might suggest. High acidity and heavy rainfall require growers to provide constant care. In 2023, Guam had 583 farms, but they occupied only about 2.1% of the island's land. A breadfruit harvested from the backyard cannot replace imported food, but it shortens the journey of a meal from thousands of miles to only a few steps. Farmland is limited. Could the waters surrounding Guam provide what the land cannot? As the sun begins to rise, a man is already standing in the shallow water near the shore. He holds a circular net in both hands, patiently waiting for a school of small fish to enter the narrow stretch of water within his reach. Then the taloya suddenly opens. The net spreads into an almost perfect circle before sinking into the sea. The movement lasts only a few seconds, but it requires the fisherman to understand the direction of the current and recognize the moment when the fish begin to turn. The taloya is so closely associated with Guam that it can easily be mistaken for an ancient tool. In fact, CHamoru ancestors used other types of nets, traps, and spears, while the circular casting net may have arrived in the islands much later. Local people adopted it and gradually made it a familiar part of coastal life. The catch cannot replace imported food, but it can still supplement family meals and preserve the tradition of sharing what the sea provides with relatives. Farther offshore, the ocean becomes a training ground for outrigger paddling teams and divers who hunt reef fish. One requires an entire crew to maintain the same rhythm, while the other concentrates every challenge into the breath of a single person. Both preserve a connection with the ocean, but the size of their catch reveals that these waters are not an endless source of food. In the deep waters of Apra Harbor, divers encounter another unusual sight. The SMS Cormoran was deliberately sunk by its own crew in 1917. 36 years later, the Japanese ship Tokai Maru sank in almost the same location. The sterns of the two ships now touch at a depth of about 118 feet. With only a few kicks, a diver can leave a shipwreck from World War I and reach a vessel from World War II. Back at the surface, the sounds of waves and paddles fill the air. But upon entering the forests of Guam, one familiar sound has almost completely disappeared. The sounds of waves and paddles continue across the water. Beyond the coastline, the forests remain dense and green, but their soundscape has changed. Viewed from the sea, the forests of northern Guam still stretch across the landscape in an almost unbroken expanse of green. There are no blackened tree trunks, no empty clearings, and no visible warning that part of the ecosystem has disappeared. The change can only be recognized through sound. Wind still passes through the canopy, Insects still move beneath the decaying leaves, but the birdsong that once filled every morning can now be heard only in scattered places. Among the lower branches, spider webs have grown increasingly dense. Beneath the trees, seeds and fruit remain where they fall, because many of the birds that once carried them throughout the forest are gone. During the day, the culprit is almost impossible to see. At night, a long brown body begins moving through the leaves. It searches for nests and consumes eggs, chicks, and even sleeping adult birds. The brown tree snake most likely reached Guam through cargo shipments after World War II. On an island without natural predators capable of controlling it, the snake population quickly grew beyond control. Brown tree snakes contributed to the disappearance of 9 of Guam's 11 native forest bird species from the wild. The snakes do not remain beneath the forest canopy. Lights and electrical systems draw them toward residential areas. They climb utility poles, enter electrical equipment, and cause short circuits that can suddenly leave an entire neighborhood without power. Above the forest, a helicopter begins flying across designated areas. It does not spray chemicals. Instead, it drops dead newborn mice containing acetaminophen. Paper streamers catch on tree branches, placing the bait where the snakes usually hunt. A common human pain reliever has become a weapon against the creature that transformed an entire island. But Guam still cannot bring its lost birds home. Across a narrow stretch of water, cocoa are being bred and restored on Island Dano. Chicks have already appeared, proving that this flightless bird still has a chance to survive in the wild. The call of the cocoa has returned to a place very close to Guam, yet its native forest is still not safe enough to welcome it home. Before entering a trail hidden beneath massive roots, someone quietly asks for permission. In CHamoru culture, this is an expression of respetu, the respect shown toward the land and those who lived there before them. Tauta o Mauna are believed to be ancestral spirits that remain present around sacred places. The forest therefore preserves more than life. It also holds the memory of the community. Words asking for permission in the CHamoru language are no longer heard only along forest trails. Inside classrooms, children slowly repeat each word after their teacher. Some have heard their grandparents speak the language, but cannot yet hold a conversation themselves. Every syllable they relearn brings a part of their identity closer to a new generation. Yet the future of these children will not be determined inside the classroom alone. For certain fields of study and career paths, the next opportunity is not found in another village on the island. It lies across the ocean. At the Guam airport, families often remain together for a long time before reaching the security checkpoint. A young person preparing to leave for the continental United States to study or find work carries clothing, documents, and a few familiar foods packed at home. No one knows whether a journey intended to last only a few years will gradually become a permanent life away from the island. Leaving Guam is not like moving to a nearby city. Nearly 6,000 miles of ocean separate the island from the continental United States. High travel costs mean that every visit home must be carefully considered. The distance that once helped the CHamoru people preserve their identity may now pull its future guardians farther away from home. Guam welcomes the new day before the rest of America, but its future depends on whether the younger generation has enough reasons and opportunities to remain. If you were born on an island separated from greater opportunities by thousands of miles of ocean, would you leave in search of a future or stay and help build one at home? Leave a comment and tell us where you would like our next journey to take you.